So WWE this week had their quarterly conference call with all of their shareholders on Wall Street. And I think we all know at this current time that WWE is making more money now than they've ever made in their entire history. But nobody gives a shit about that. I'm not here to talk about that. That is a foregone conclusion. I don't care how much money Vince McMahon is making. The biggest story to come out of the shareholders conference call is that everybody is finally starting to wake up to Vince McMahon's bullshit. Everybody is starting to wake up to Vince McMahon's excuses. Every single quarter, it's something different. Every single quarter, he's placing the finger of blame on somebody else, anybody else but himself. I am here to talk about what Vince McMahon stated in this conference call with shareholders, how he plans to make and create new stars, why the ratings are down, how he plans to fix the ratings, and all that came out of this conference call with Vince McMahon answering questions and dodging every single important detail that should be discussed as to why the WWE product right now is the worst creatively that it's ever been in the history of World Wrestling Entertainment. Oh, if you thought last week was a rant, wait till you see what I got in store for you guys today on episode 337 of Off the Script.
5, delete! This is mine.
What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining me right here for episode 337, part number 1 for your August 1st, 2020. This is Off the Script. I am JD from New York, and we got a lot to go over in regards to the shareholders conference call that was pretty much overseen by Vince McMahon, answering questions about literally every dying aspect, every problem of WWE right now in its current state, and doing what Vince McMahon does best, and that is dodge bullets. That's all he did. He did not give you any concrete answers on how things are going to change, why things need to change, who is blaming who for what, and what's wrong on the product. You name it, none of it has to do with Vince McMahon, and we are going to go over every aspect of what he said and why he is an absolute bullshit artist in every sense of the word. If this podcast had a title, I might actually put this in the title anyway. Vince McMahon is running out of excuses is the title for today's podcast. And we know every time we have one of these teleconference calls with shareholders on Wall Street, you know you're going to get something that is just outlandish from Vince McMahon. Why Paul Heyman was fired. He finally also addressed why Paul Heyman was fired, and why he is stating the same thing that Paul Heyman wanted to do, but Paul Heyman was let go. Which kind of backs up the reason that I gave, which was not a confirmed reason as to why he was terminated, but I'm going to assume that my reason was correct. And we're going to go over it all right here on the podcast, man. A loaded show for everybody here on your Saturday afternoon. Now, let me go over a few things here, man. I just got back from vacation. I was in Niagara Falls. It was awesome. Had a great time. And I got so backlogged on WWE news and rumors and innuendo that I wanted to keep the recording process while I was away very limited. I did Monday Night Raw live. I did AEW Dynamite live with Jesse. And I did not do, because I know people were asking for it and asking where it was. There was none. I did not do an NXT review live like I usually do. Everything will resume normally next week, okay? I do know what happened on NXT, so that is the extent of it. And I doubt anybody is out there caring about my opinion on NXT anyway, so we will pick that up and do it next week. So if you guys were wondering where that was, I did not do one. This podcast normally goes up on Friday around 1:30, 2 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame. And I opted not to do one because I got back so late from everything and I unpacked and I settled in and I really didn't want to do much of anything. I didn't want to sit here and do a 2-hour podcast. I didn't want to sit here and just feel tired and lethargic. So what I did yesterday, and I would appreciate if you guys go and check it out, I did an off-the-script extra. I actually recorded a couple of off-the-script extras yesterday in succession. And I did that instead of sitting here and doing a 2-hour podcast. Those videos are a lot easier to do and edit and just get up and really get ready for you guys. So I did one yesterday where we talked about WWE news and rumors. So go and check that out. SummerSlam possibly being moved out of Florida. Backup plans for SummerSlam by WWE management. Royal Rumble plans right now on hold. I got news on that. So make sure you go and check all of that out. AJ Styles out there saying on his Twitch channel that he doesn't think WWE is going to have live fans in attendance this year. Lots of good stuff to come out of that. Eddie Kingston also got signed by AEW. I give my thoughts on that. So go and check it out. Links will be down in the description for everything you might have missed on the channel this week, including that off-the-script extra. I also got another one recorded, already queued up. We talked about Aleister Black and his supposed gimmick change. Vince McMahon reportedly states that Aleister Black needs a little bit something else. He's missing something. And in typical WWE fashion, they take something that Triple H created, they kill it on the main roster, and then they rebuild it in their own image. That's exactly what they're doing with Aleister Black. Apparently, he is not being written off television. He is not falling out of good graces with Vince McMahon. Apparently, Vince McMahon is a big fan of Aleister Black. He just feels like something is missing in that gimmick that he had in NXT is going to limit him on the main roster. So I go over all that. I also talk about the situation with Alexa Bliss and the $431 cameo message that she sent out to some geek out there that paid this amount of money to simply ask her out on a date. And I go over it, man. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss my reaction. We watched the video. We also talk about Pat McAfee, Adam Cole, Triple H inviting Pat McAfee to come to NXT and confront Adam Cole. Lots of good stuff, man. Like I said, I was backlogged on everything. So these extras are going to kind of fill those gaps in this weekend. So make sure you go and check all of that stuff out. Links are down below in the description of this very video. I got a new t-shirt coming out, man. And I know a lot of you guys really didn't care for the Doing God's Work t-shirt. But if you guys actually went out and bought that, I really appreciate it. So if you guys want, you can still go and get that. And the link for that will be down in the description of the video on Bonfire. But my boy Mikey, at MikeWill87 on Twitter, he's also the other graphics artist I use. Sal Rex does all the thumbnails daily for me. He does all the layouts like you see here. Mikey does the layouts for the pay-per-view reviews and the live streams. And he also kind of works with me on a few designs as far as new t-shirt ideas and whatnot. And I know somebody mentioned in a super chat on one of the previous live streams about the Negan design. And I'm like, you know what? I want to get a new Negan design out there. And I know Negan isn't as popular as he was in season 7 of The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead in itself is not as popular as The Walking Dead in season 7. But I always had this infatuation with Negan. And I love the Negan character. I love what Negan represented on the show. And in some ways, I modeled myself after Negan and his mentality. with what he did on The Walking Dead. I took that and I applied it to WWE. I made it into a t-shirt. I made a caricature of myself as Negan on the original off-the-script design. JD is Negan. And it was the biggest selling off-the-script shirt in off-the-script history. As long as this podcast has been around, that shirt was the number one seller. I think the next one was the JD's Elite. You guys absolutely love that. That was a Sal Rex design as well. You guys absolutely killed it on the JD's Elite. It's still selling today. But the Negan design is very special. It was legitimately the first big t-shirt I got out there and people went crazy for. So it's got a very special place in my heart. And I wanted a new one made, and I had Mikey do it. He listened to it, and he's like, I hear JD wants a new, updated version of the Negan design. It's nothing new. I know Negan is not really relevant as a villain nowadays, but I wanted an updated version of the shirt. And Mikey went out of his way to do it, and he made a design, and this is the new design for the t-shirt, man. The IWC Savior. And there's me with my Lucille, with my black leather jacket, with my off-the-script hat, and I'm going to save you all from shitty creative and shitty podcasts and shitty content creators in the community that are nothing but fucking shills, blue checkmark cocksuckers that want nothing more than praise from WWE superstars for being positive while hiding the negative and being fake to their audience. That is the reason for the Negan design. IWC Savior. If you guys are interested in that, I urge you to keep an eye and an ear on my Twitter. Monday is the day at noon. I originally stated it was going to be up during Raw. At noon on Monday, on Bonfire, exclusively, you guys will be able to get yourself an updated version of the IWC Savior Negan design. JD is Negan right here on Off the Script. And I got to thank Mikey for creating this awesome design. So thank you to him, and hopefully you guys can make the second one even bigger than the first one, man. So thank you to everybody that supports the podcast. Follow me on Twitter, man, at JD from NY206. That's on Twitter and Instagram. Both of them. Same at. Follow me on social media. Hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on that bell for all notifications. Very, very important. If you guys enjoy anything you hear or see here, hit that thumbs up. Patreon.com/Shady from NY206 if you guys want to support the podcast via Patreon. And today's show is sponsored by The Ridge. Ridge.com/script. The number one men's wallet anywhere in the world is The Ridge. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but I want to thank them, as always, for supporting Off the Script. Guys, let's get into the top of everything here on the news feed today, and that is Vince McMahon and the quarterly WWE Shareholders conference call on Wall Street that was conducted by Frank A. Riddick, WWE CFO, Frank A. Riddick III, and Vince McMahon. Now, this happened on Thursday, and everything that was said, I got listed here as far as bullet points, and then we're going to deep dive into the actual subjects that I mentioned here. So this is more of a bullet point presentation to give you guys an idea of what was going on during the conference call, and then we will attack the biggest pieces of information that came out of this conference call. So they opened the conference call, and they opened with a welcome to everyone on the call. Spare your welcomes. I don't want to hear anybody welcoming me. Just give me what I need to know, and that is crucial information. McMahon ran through the highlights of their earnings. McMahon touted the strong financial performance in the quarter despite the challenging environment, COVID. He also touted record viewership on the digital side of WWE during WrestleMania week and credited cost saving for the good numbers this quarter. Apparently, WrestleMania was one of the more digitally interactive WrestleManias as far as numbers on social media, numbers on YouTube. One of the highest WrestleMania weekends, social media-wise, that WWE has ever seen in the history of the company. And then obviously the cost-saving measures are the reason for the good numbers this quarter because they're running out of the Performance Center. They don't really need to spend much on production, and they have everything taped. They're not live every single week. They tape a bunch of shows, and they're off for 2 weeks. So they're saving money doing that as well this quarter. So obviously things are looking up and in the green for WWE. Riddick then ran through the revenue numbers. WWE Network average paid subscribers declined 1.5%, and they slipped to 1.66 million subscribers, while ending paid subscribers increased 6% to 1.69 million. Revenues were $223.4 million as compared to $268.9 million in the prior quarter. Live event revenues obviously declined to $1 million from $48.8 million in the prior year quarter, primarily due to the fact that there have not been any live gate performances or live house shows. So WWE really doesn't have anything to gauge that off of. So clearly and obviously that was going to be down. So that should be a surprise to nobody. Operating income was $55.7 million as compared to $17.1 million in the prior year quarter. Now, this is when they opened the calls for questions. McMahon was asked about TV viewership and how concerned he is with the decline of ratings on Raw and SmackDown, in addition to his strategy to turn it around. So he did talk about the ratings decline on both shows, and Vince said the audience is integral in the ratings. However, he thinks they need new and better characters and more compelling storylines. He also stated that they can have more content outside of the ring. Yes, Vince, we get it. We know that we need new and better characters and more compelling storylines. Isn't this the same excuse that you gave in the conference call last quarter? What about the quarter before that? What about the quarter before that one, and before that one, and before that one, and before that one? For the last 3 years, it's been the same fucking excuse every single time you're on one of these fucking phone calls. Yes, we need new characters and more compelling storylines. How many times are you going to be able to use that excuse? I think you're running out of excuses here, Vince. Seriously. When asked about holding another event in Saudi Arabia this year, Vince McMahon stated the decision hasn't been made yet, but given where they are with their economy, I would doubt it. I don't think anybody is flying anywhere in 2020. Nobody's going anywhere. I think there'll be another worldwide shutdown with the coronavirus happening after the summer is over. Because they've already teased it in the media. They've already teased it with Fauci coming out and having these press conferences. You know what's coming. Bill Gates has even teased it in interviews he's done. When phase 2 of the coronavirus happens, when the inevitable second lockdown happens, we're in the first lockdown. We're just now opening things up in stages, and people are already talking about another lockdown. So they're pre-programming you for everything that's coming after the summer is over. Have your fun now, but when the colder weather hits, obviously it's going to be a great narrative for them to ramp up the numbers and flu season and everybody getting sick with the colder weather. It's like a fucking comedy show. Nobody's going anywhere. WWE will be lucky if they even have a performance center to work out of come the winter. They may actually get shut down in the winter, and there'll be nothing that WWE could do about it. Regarding the free version of the WWE Network, Riddick noted that WWE Network viewership is up for free and for paid subscribers. McMahon stated that they have not hurt themselves by going with it instead of the 30-day free trial offering to the entire service. This is something that should have been done for years now. How many years did WWE go out there and give away the network for free, give away pay-per-views for free, give away WrestleMania for free? What a dumb fucking idea. WWE doing that shows you how very little they think of their actual product. So much so that they would be willing to give away WrestleMania in hopes that people stay on. That just goes to show you that WWE really doesn't know their viewing audience. How many of these people are actually people that watch the show week in and week out, every single week, 52 weeks a year? Not many. People know WrestleMania because it's WrestleMania. It's the biggest show in pro wrestling. They will sign up. These people might not have watched the product for 4 or 5 years now, kind of still are in tune with what's going on, know some of the characters here and there. And on a lazy Sunday, April afternoon, they'll sign up for free. Oh, I could get WrestleMania for free? Let's get the family in here and watch WrestleMania. Let's see how different it is compared to when I was a youngster. It's WrestleMania. How many people watch the Super Bowl without actually being a fan of the teams playing in the Super Bowl? A lot of people. That's the same thing with WrestleMania. Those people who signed up for the network signed up for that alone and then cancel immediately after. That's what Vince McMahon thinks of WrestleMania. That's what Vince McMahon thinks of his biggest commodity, his greatest creation. What a stupid fucking idea. So I'm glad, personally, I'm glad, just for his sake, that he did away with the free trial. And now, for you to sign up to watch whatever you want to watch on the network, upcoming pay-per-views, takeovers, special events, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, so on and so forth, you got to shell out the $9.99. And then maybe you'll catch something that you like and you'll stay on. They also gave away a free tier. Basically, it is a thinned out version of the network. You guys get all the programs that nobody really watches anyway. You get Raw Talk and all this other shit. That comic book shit that WWE does on there. The stories, the table for three, the ride-alongs and all that. All that stuff is on there for free. Almost as if it's an introductory to the network. Please, this is what we got. And we got all of this stuff plus much better stuff on the paid version of the network. Documentaries, sit-downs, the Undertaker thing. WWE did good with that Undertaker thing. And it was during the $9.99 version of the network that you had to pay for. So if you guys wanted to watch, WWE kept you on for at least 2 months with that because they didn't release all that at the same time. They didn't release that in all 5 parts at the same time. They kept you on the edge of your seat waiting for the next one. They gave you one every Sunday, and then they skipped a couple of Sundays. They waited for a specific pay-per-view to happen, and then they showcased it after the pay-per-view was over. So WWE kept on those people for 2 months during that Undertaker documentary. It's a smart move. It's a smart move. I would pay $9.99 to watch that. And I'm sure a lot of people did. McMahon was asked why viewership numbers for AEW and NXT have rebounded better than Raw and SmackDown in the COVID-19 era. He stated those 2 programs are newer. Is that the reason, Vince? Is that the reason why? Because they're newer? I don't think so. Are they more youthful? Absolutely. Are they more cool? Absolutely. Are they more logical programs? Absolutely. Are they storyline driven that keeps the viewer engaged on a week-to-week basis? Absolutely. Youthful is the most important word I use there. AEW and NXT doesn't have Big Show and Christian and Ric Flair and Rey Mysterio in top-tier storylines. It's not because they're newer. It's because they're more watchable. In every aspect of the word, they are more watchable programs. He stated that it's up to them to make Raw and SmackDown new and youthful. He added that you always have to build new stars and new characters. But I thought Paul Heyman wanted to do that, but now he is without a job. Why is that? Why is that? We'll talk about that. There was a question about said Paul Heyman's exit from Raw and the executive director role on Raw. And McMahon put him over for doing a good job at being creative. But that doesn't really give me the reason as to why Paul Heyman was fired. Why was Paul Heyman fired? We'll talk about it. Another ratings question was about how long it will take to rebuild viewership. McMahon stated, the audience is very important to what we do. I would like to think it's months away. Months away? Do you not realize what is happening in the middle of September? You got NFL coming back, hopefully, for everybody watching. who is an NFL fan, because I know I read yesterday that the commissioner of MLB is already threatening the Players Association that if they don't get their shit together and rectify this COVID-19 shit with the Phillies and the Marlins, and they don't right the ship here, that he will not hesitate to cancel the fucking season. And I don't want that. I'm actually enjoying baseball without the fans. I don't really give a shit if the fans are there or not. I'm just enjoying watching my Braves kick some ass. How about the Mets on Friday night, by the way? Huh? Losing 8-2 were the Braves, and they came back and won 11-10. Is the Mets bullpen that fucking terrible? My goodness, man. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about how shitty the Mets bullpen is or why the Braves are going to choke in the playoffs again. I'm thinking to myself, man, come the World Series, I can't even imagine the World Series, the playoffs, without fans. It's going to be so weird. This is okay, but come that time of the season, I don't know if I'll be able to watch it with the same level of excitement, you know? But does Vince McMahon know what is coming in September? You got football season. It's just months away. You got baseball. Baseball is having an abbreviated 60-game season. NBA just started back up. NHL is starting back up with what they're doing on the road to the Stanley Cup. Football is coming, right? So Vince McMahon thinks that it's just months away. You'd think all the fans that you've driven away to a point where Monday Night Raw now is generating a 1.4 rating in the third hour, you'd think it's going to be months away from getting all of those people that you've chased away back to watch the show? What plan do you have to get those people back watching the show that it's only months away? You didn't give these people any game plan. You didn't give these people any strategy of yours to get those people back. Those people are gone. Gone. People will be back to watch WWE programming when the current management right now running the show is gone. That's when people will come back. Months away, unless Vince is going to fucking drop dead somewhere. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. He is the absolute reason why people are not watching the show. So until he is removed by any means necessary, then people will not be back. People at this point now have attributed failure to Vince McMahon. Everybody knows Vince McMahon is out of touch with what the pro wrestling fan wants. It's just ridiculous to even think about that a 74-year-old man is running a show aimed at 18 to fucking 34. 18 to 34 is the demographic. Are you serious? You got Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard manning the ship on what they think the fans want to see out of WWE. They're not operating and giving the fans what they want. They're operating and giving themselves what they want. And in turn, now they sit where they sit. Months away, I even stated this time and time and time again. If you remove Vince McMahon and you put in Triple H, who I think deserves an opportunity to right this ship, even him, with what he's done and all the great he's done in NXT. And I say this every single time I talk about this. You have to adopt the NXT model and do it on the main roster. If there was ever an opportunity to adopt that model, it would be now. If you take Vince McMahon out of the equation and put Triple H in there, it's not even going to take Triple H and all that he knows and has done with NXT, apply it to the main roster. It's not going to work in 6 months. It's not going to work in 12 months. It's not going to work in 18 months, 24 months. It is going to be a long rehabilitation process for WWE. You're not going to get these fans back overnight. You need a level of consistency. And I don't think WWE even knows what that means. You can't put on one good show and then give me 6 bad shows. You got to have one good show every single week for a very long time. You need to build new characters to the point where they're important. You need to establish win streaks and momentum. You need to make these pay-per-views mean something. You have to have compelling storylines for people to watch on a week-to-week basis. WWE finally did something cool on SmackDown with Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss. Now people are jumping the gun here about where it's leading. I told you guys on my SmackDown review. It's not leading anywhere. Braun Strowman is coming back, and Bray Wyatt used Alexa Bliss to get Braun Strowman back and on television. Where has Braun Strowman been? Bray Wyatt wants what Braun Strowman has, and that is the Universal Championship. So now he's using Alexa Bliss as a catalyst to get Braun Strowman back to give him another match at SummerSlam. Where that goes with Alexa Bliss, I already told you. Bray Wyatt used the Hurt Glove on Alexa Bliss. Nikki Cross shoved Alexa Bliss down at the end of her match with Bayley. Everybody's thinking, oh, Nikki Cross is going heel. Why would Nikki Cross go heel? Why would she go heel? She looks like a babyface in this situation as people are sympathetic to her. The fact that Alexa was pushed down and now Bray Wyatt kind of used the Hurt Glove on her. Now I feel like Alexa Bliss is going to confront Nikki Cross and be the one to turn heel instead of Nikki turning heel. Which Alexa Bliss works better as a heel anyway. That's all it is. People are thinking, oh my God, it's this. Oh my God, it's that. It is very black and white here, folks. It's very simple. It's a very linear path that they're going on. It's nothing more. Stop thinking about what WWE could be doing here. I already laid it out for you what they're doing. That is the level of their creativity. Did it work? Yes. The one clip right now on YouTube has over 1 million views with Bray Wyatt giving Alexa Bliss the mandible claw. We need more of that. You need that on a consistent basis. You need people to take that and go into the next week's show with vested interest. WWE has no idea how to do that. They'll do it once in a blue, but they don't do it enough. And it's going to take a very long time. People watching SmackDown last night seen it. People like me, people who have to cover it, people in the community, podcasts alike. Most of the people watching this shit are out doing something else. They don't give a shit about SmackDown. Why aren't they watching SmackDown? Because they know SmackDown is an unimportant show. They know SmackDown isn't a good program. So why would they sit there and watch a bad program knowing it's probably going to be the same shit that they seen last week? When a good show happens, they don't know a good show happens. When a good segment like that happens, they don't know it happens until they get back home and they read Twitter and they go on YouTube and see, oh my God, what is this? You got to build consistency. And WWE has not done that. They have not done that enough for people to sit there and say, you know what, I can't wait for SmackDown. Now, is it enough to get people to say that about last night's SmackDown? Probably not. Probably not. But it's interesting. It was a cliffhanger. They need more cliffhangers at the end of the shows like that. Another ratings question was about how long it will take to rebuild viewership. Months away. Riddick said that acquiring Evolve was a small content purchase with no M&A opportunities associated with it. They purchased Evolve for the library, and that is it. Everybody that was a Evolve performer, they just signed, I believe they just signed Leon Ruff from Evolve. They just signed Anthony Green from Evolve as well. 2 wrestlers from Evolve they have now coming on into NXT. And that's not the only 2 names that will be coming in. I'm sure we're going to get a lot more coming on in. Some of the females over there. Brandy Lauren, I think, is over there as well. You got, who else is over there? There was a ton of guys over there. Josh Briggs was over there as well. I could see him in NXT, molding into something big. Joe Gacy was over there as well. So WWE's going to pick their talent pool clean, and the only reason why they purchased Evolve was because a lot of the people that they have currently on the main roster right now actually came and worked in Evolve, or has some affiliation with Evolve. So with their documentaries being so big and so great, WWE purchased that because it made sense for them. They were thinking in the future with that purchase of Evolve and their video library. If they only thought about the future of their fucking company with the talent that they continue to bury, I wish they had that same mentality in pushing new people, building for the future. You're thinking about the future. WWE doesn't do that. In some aspects of the company, they do that, but they don't, primarily. Monday Night Raw drew the 3rd lowest rating in the history of the company, I believe. This might have been the third lowest in the history of the company. I believe the last 2 weeks were number 1 and number 2. But the third hour of Monday Night Raw on Monday was the worst third hour rating in the history of Monday Night Raw. This week's Raw number, even though it wasn't totally a bad show, but it's just so fucking illogical, I can't really stand behind it and praise it. There were some bright spots on the show, and I really don't want to give people the wrong impression about Raw. It's so illogical that I can't really sit here and even remember the positive on the show. Because all I remember is ranting about the illogical. The first 2 hours did normal Monday Night Raw viewership. And then that third hour was the lowest ever in the 18 to 49 demographic. Raw averaged 1.62 million viewers, down 1% from last week's second worst number ever. But this show was loaded between Asuka and Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship. Drew McIntyre, if you want to say that's a loaded match, Drew McIntyre versus Dolph Ziggler, which was pushed on television for the WWE Championship being on the line, and then it was quietly changed to a non-title match over the weekend. The idea of doing the second worst number ever with 2 major title matches on the line has to be considered an absolute failure for Monday Night Raw. Now, they changed that Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre match because Randy Orton, I believe in post-edit, they realized right before the show was about to hit the air, they were working on the show, prettying the show up for the Monday night time slot. They were working on this show on the weekend, and they figured, well, Randy Orton is in the opening segment challenging Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship, and here we have a WWE Championship match between Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. Why are we having Orton come out there saying he wants Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam without mentioning anything about Dolph Ziggler? And then we're advertising this match for the WWE title, and everybody knowing after they see that, more than likely Dolph Ziggler is losing. So they changed it to a non-title match after we clearly heard the week before that it would be for the WWE Championship and that Drew would put the title on the line and give Dolph another shot. The only difference is Dolph had the stipulation in his favor at Extreme Rules, and Drew McIntyre would be the one to have the stipulation in his favor this time. So Dolph getting a title match was going to be coming from behind. But they changed it. And that's the reason why they changed it, because Randy Orton came out and challenged Drew McIntyre to a title match at SummerSlam. Wouldn't make sense if Ziggler was in a title match and going into that, everybody knew watching that he was losing. So they changed it to a non-title match. Too little, too late. I don't even think Dolph Ziggler knew that Dolph Ziggler could win that match. So that was that. In addition, Raw set an all-time record low for the third hour, built around those 2 matches, and the third hour rating was a 1.46, breaking the single-hour record low of 1.50 set by last week's Hour 3 with Randy Orton and The Big Show, and a 0.41 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, breaking the all-time lowest hour demographic of 0.42 set last week. Wow. I even hinted I would not be surprised that we're getting this rematch, and this is the lowest rating in that demographic ever. And I was right. That is terrible. That is absolutely fucking terrible. How many people watched that Sasha Banks and Asuka match for the Raw Women's Championship and then immediately bounced, shut the show off, went and did something else, went to go watch something else? How many of you guys actually watched that match and watched the ending of that match and then knew that Ziggler and McIntyre were coming up and immediately went and did something else? Unbelievable. Now, the show averaged a 0.48 in the 18 to 49, the third lowest ever, because the first and second hours were up from last week in the key demo, an overall 4% increase from last week. Raw finished 19th overall and third in the 18 to 49. In 18 to 49, it trailed only 90 Day Fiancé on TLC and Below Deck Mediterranean on Bravo. It was fifth in total viewers among non-news shows on Monday. Raw was still first in both males 18 to 49 and 18 to 34. Raw is down 30% from the same week last year overall, 35% in the 18 to 49, and down 52% from last year in the 18 to 34. The bad sign was the 14% from the first to third hour drop is more than the show has been doing in recent weeks. The drops were 28% in women, 18 to 49, 16% in males, 18 to 49, 88% in teenage girls. That is absolutely unheard of. 88% in teenage girls and 52% in teenage boys, which I've never seen it that bad, while only 7% in over 50. Because those old folk, those senior citizens love their WWE. There was something in hour two that was as big a turnoff to teenagers as anything in recent memory. What it was, I don't know. I don't know what it could be or what it could be pinpointed as, but the overall show, I don't even give a shit what it is. The overall show is a complete failure. The overall show is a complete failure, and the ratings numbers show it. This should tell you how bad the show is without even actually watching the show. The 3 hours were 8 p.m., 1.70, 9 p.m., 1.69, and then that dreaded third hour, 10 p.m., a 1.46. Monday Night Raw needs to go back to 2 hours. That third hour is absolutely killing the show. Even if they do put on a good show, 3 hours of pro wrestling on a Monday night is still excruciatingly long. That third hour, if it was removed, the Raw rating would obviously be a bounce back from what we've seen in recent weeks. Why does that third hour exist? I don't really understand it. The reason why this show feels so fucking rinse and repeat every single week is because you need to fill 3 hours. If this show was at 2 hours, I guarantee you that Raw will be a better show because of it. Instantly, it would be a better show. They want to be greedy. They want their advertising money. If I was WWE, I would say, you know what? I'm going to take the loss here. I'm going to take the loss in advertising money just for the fucking ratings in itself to bounce back. Just for the overall health of the show. They don't think that way. They're greedy. They don't give a shit about us. They want their money. That's all it is. Raw sucks. Vince McMahon addresses the WWE's television viewership decline with shareholders. Now, obviously, I just went over Monday Night Raw. SmackDown was down with the bar fight last week as well. Monday Night Raw's flagship show, or Monday Night Raw is WWE's flagship show. They have done record lows during this pandemic era. Just last Monday, the show did the lowest rating ever in the 18 to 49 demographic. Friday Night SmackDown on Fox has also seen a decrease from where it started back in October. And man, it looks like a completely different show, ratings-wise. The show sucked on that Friday night, and it's even worse now. WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon addressed WWE's decline in television viewership during their shareholders meeting that took place last week. We have 30 plus years as far as a track record of creating compelling characters and engaging a variety of audiences, and we obviously remain confident we can continue that with our collective ability, even in the most challenging environments with no live audience. You have a 30-plus year track record of creating compelling characters and engaging a variety of audiences. You're engaging no audiences at this current time, and you're not creating compelling characters. When we do have a compelling character on TV, or a character that we want to see on TV more and pushed more, when we want to see a youthful talent on TV right now get a push and get some momentum, WWE stops it before it even has a chance to fucking start. So he's outright lying right away as far as why the ratings are declining. You got a 30-plus year track record. The last 10 years for Monday Night Raw and SmackDown should prove to everybody that he's losing his fucking touch. I don't give a fuck about your 30-plus year track record. It's what matters now is happening. Whatever's happening now is what's most important. 30 plus years. Let me hang my hat on what I did fucking 20 years ago. He remains confident that they will continue that with their collective ability, even in the most challenging environments with no live audience. The media ecosystem obviously has changed. We change with it. Our engagement metrics across platforms are understandably and obviously, however, the importance of linear programming is paramount in all of our businesses. We consistently have seen year-over-year increases in a variety of digital metrics and engagement, and positive trends have continued even during COVID. Conversely, TV viewership trends have been negatively impacted by COVID, obviously, and the lack of a live audience. We are still nonetheless the number one television show on USA Network and consistently the number one broadcast show on Fridays among key demos. We expect a combination of valuable promotional inventory from our TV partners with the return of sports events programming. And a deep roster of charismatic talent will have a positive impact on viewership over the long term. That obviously was a cover-up, and deep underneath all of that, it's pretty much, I have no idea what we're going to do. I need to give these people the most bullshit, prettiest answer I can without actually giving them any strategic plan that we have as far as the ratings and how they're going to get better. This was nothing more than covering up fucking bullshit. Vince McMahon clearly, with everything he said here, deep underneath all of that, what I heard was, I have no fucking idea how we're going to fix the ratings. My ego is so big, I can't allow someone to come in here and clean up the fucking mess that I am personally responsible for. I don't give a fuck about your online engagement or your metrics across platforms on social media and YouTube. I don't give a shit. Why aren't people watching when the show is on live? Live. Now, I don't know who's out there shilling WWE. If you are, go fuck yourself. But are you going to sit there and tell me that if there were live audiences in attendance? Now, I'm not saying that it has nothing to do with it. I'm sure the absence of live audiences here have driven people away from watching the product. But then I'd be curious to know what the ratings for MLB are. I'd be curious to see what the ratings for the NBA are. I'd be curious to see what the ratings for the NFL are come the season. So if WWE is telling us that the live audience being absent has a very integral part in the ratings declining, I want to know what the ratings are for all those other major sports, and if they are increased over last year, then clearly it's not the absence of the live audience. It has everything to do with how you're booking the show. Do you people listening to me, obviously, if you're listening to me, you know I'm going to ask this question. You know how I operate. Do you people obviously listening to me or watching me, wherever you are, do you honestly believe if things were normal that the shows would be different? If the fans were in attendance and we were in a live setting with 10,000 screaming WWE fans on a Monday night, I don't remember anybody screaming their heads off. It was always dead and lifeless crowds anyway because the show sucked. Do you honestly believe if things were normal that the shows would be written, presented, or portrayed any differently? I don't think so. What you are seeing now on WWE television is the same exact show you'd be getting on a Monday with full audience in attendance. The same exact show that you're getting on Friday. Every single week in the PC would be the same show you're getting in front of a live audience on Friday night if things were normal. Nothing would change. WWE has not pushed new stars. They have neglected pushing new stars. WWE, even with the live audience setting and now looking at the PC era, the pandemic era on SmackDown, I haven't noticed a single fucking thing that has changed from when there were live audiences to where we sit now. The same people are being pushed. The same people are being pushed. And then what does WWE do on Monday night? Instead of building new, they go out and bring the big show and start giving the big show 4 and 5 segments on Monday night. They call up Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler, and they sit in the back. All we get is Asuka and Charlotte. Charlotte went away. And now we got Sasha and Bayley leading the charge on Monday and on Friday. How many people are watching the show wanting to see new talent, don't get new talent, and then just leave? Get up and walk away and leave because WWE hasn't opted to embrace change. Instead of changing in a time where change is A, necessary, and B, more perfect than ever, you opt to go back into the nostalgic cookie bag and give me shit that I seen 10 years ago. Meanwhile, we're going into 2020, 2021, and we're in the middle of what we're dealing with now as far as the world climate, and you still refuse to give me anything different. This should be an ample time, an opportunity, more so than any other time in their history, to experiment and try new things. And they have not. If they have, people, if they opted to embrace change, if they wanted to change, they would have done so. They've given you the same program every single week. And nothing has changed as far as I go. And I know I'm one of the smartest and most analytical people in this fucking community. You ain't gonna get one over on me and tell me the shows would be different if there was a live audience. Where? How? Why? This show is the same show with live fans. Excuses. Excuses. 30-plus year track record. I don't want to hear about your 30-plus year track record. I want to hear about your track record now. The fact that he's bringing up a 30-plus year track record is him covering the fact that he's a fucking failure right now. Creating compelling characters. Where? Who on TV is compelling? Who? If there were compelling characters on TV, and I'm not talking about one, I'm talking about a dozen. If there were compelling characters on TV, don't you think the compelling characters would be drawing interest from the fucking fans and getting them to watch week in and week out to see what they do next? How compelling can they be if people are leaving? We remain confident that we can continue that with our collective ability. Your collective ability is a collective failure. The ability that you have is driving the ratings down and the people to pick up their remote controls. So what collective ability are you talking about? We're the #1 show on USA Network. What does USA Network have that's so must-see? I don't really know anything on the Chrisleys? Really? That means nothing to me. Consistently the #1 broadcast show on Fridays among key demos. Great. Fine. Hang your hat on that one. But the ratings for Fox, on a station like Fox, a 1.8, a 1.7, you're okay with that. Everybody thought them moving to Fox were going to be in how many fucking households across the United States? SmackDown would be trending upwards, 2.93s, right? SmackDown was generating a better rating on the USA Network than they are now. Nothing has changed. You figured that the show being on Fox would generate a little bit more realism, a little bit more adult-like programming, being that you're going to be promoted on NFL during the football games, during MLB. And WWE hasn't really embraced that either. They haven't really given us a new direction as far as that. They're comfortable being in their own bubble. And that is same old, same old. They don't want to experiment. They don't want to change. They are afraid of change. Everything Vince McMahon said here about the television viewership decline with the shareholders is absolute bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Then he went on to explain how WWE exactly will be building new stars for the future. Now, Paul Heyman had a mindset that he wanted to build new superstars for the future. This is why he placed such big emphasis on Apollo Crews, on Buddy Murphy, on Andrade, Angel Garza, Austin Theory, Shayna Baszler, the Street Profits, the Viking Raiders, etc., etc. Aleister Black. Aleister Black. Poor Aleister Black. Humberto Carrillo was another one. This was the mindset that Paul Heyman had. Then, just like Vince McMahon changed his fucking underwear, he was removed from that executive director position, and the fans have seen a shift in the company's creative direction. WWE still needs to build new superstars, which is something that Vince McMahon stated in their shareholders meeting on July 16th. He gave Triple H credit for building the NXT brand and said that those superstars will continue to come to the main roster. He gives Triple H credit for what he's done in NXT, but does he really appreciate what Triple H is doing with NXT to supply Vince with the future? Now, he just takes it for granted, and he looks at Triple H, and he looks at the talent that Triple H has created, and the first thing in his mind is, I can't wait to kill it. This is not what I want. I don't think this guy's getting over it with what you did. Let me kill him. Let me beat him down so badly and then rebuild him in my own image. It's exactly what's going on with Aleister Black. McMahon also mentioned that they are missing a third performer in the ring with the absence of the live crowds. I don't think there would be an emphasis on the missing live crowds if the fucking shows were good. Again, let me reiterate, the live audience is important. We all know that. But WWE is hanging their fucking failures on the live audiences. The live audiences doesn't mean the shows are going to be any different. If the live audience was there and we were operating under normal circumstances, the shows would be exactly the same way that you see them now. The live audience means nothing in that aspect. The live audience means nothing as far as the creative aspect of WWE. Sure, I mean, you want to continue to build new stars no matter what. It is so, as Paul just mentioned about NXT talent, he has done an extraordinary job of creating new stars. And as they continue to evolve, they'll continue to come up to Raw and SmackDown. So there's this influence of new superstars coming into both Raw and SmackDown. And in addition to that, the ways that we now promote talent in a more effective way with digital and social media as opposed to the normal way. So let me get this straight. I don't understand anything he's saying here. He's continuing to give Triple H credit for creating new stars as they continue to evolve. And as they continue to evolve, they'll continue to come up to Raw and SmackDown. But does Vince McMahon actually say to these people listening to this bullshit what he actually does to those that he calls up from NXT that get placed on Raw and SmackDown? Andrade, a loser. Garza, a loser. Austin Theory, a loser. Buddy Murphy, a loser. Aleister Black, a loser. The Viking Raiders, in a tag team division that's dead. That has been dead. Losers. Humberto Carrillo, loser. Apollo Crews is the United States champion, and he's out. Loser. Shayna Baszler. Shayna fucking Baszler. Called her up from NXT. What success has she had on the main roster? Called up Bianca Belair from NXT. One of the biggest and best fucking females in the entire company. Called her up from NXT. Where did she sit for 3 months? In the fucking back. In catering. With nothing to do. What about Ruby Riott? Brought Ruby Riott back. What has she done on the main roster? Nothing. What about Liv Morgan? You fucking build this woman up with a Riot Squad gimmick, break her down, give her a new fucking gimmick, bring her back to TV, make her a lesbian on TV, kill that angle, then you make her into a nobody, and then you take her off TV. Where are you creating new stars? Where are you creating new stars? What about Ali? What about Ali? Ali was moved over from SmackDown to Raw. Ali hasn't had one match on Monday Night Raw. He hasn't had one match on WWE TV all year outside of 2 weeks ago. Instead of building him up and making him into an important new guy on the show and giving him some fucking priority, maybe putting him in a big match or a big feud of some sort and building some momentum up for the fucking absence that he's been off TV for 9 months, what do? What do? Put him in a fucking trio of jobbers with two guys I'm going to mention in a little bit. And he wins. He looks good. He's got the #1 trending video for that week on WWE's YouTube channel. Comes right back the next week and gets buried. Gets buried by Bobby Lashley. Don't even get me started on Ricochet. Don't even get me started on Ricochet. The fact that you called up Ricochet, who was one of the most highly sought after gems on the independent circuit, to come into NXT and just take him from the indies and make him feel even bigger in NXT. Only to get called up to the main roster and Vince McMahon to sit there and say, I don't like him. So why the fuck did you want him in the first place? I would be absolutely shocked if someone in that company just said, you know what, Ricochet is a talent, we don't want him. There's nothing special about Ricochet. I would be shocked to hear that. I guarantee you that there are people in that company right now that must be absolutely beside themselves over the fact that Ricochet is an absolute jobber on WWE television. How this guy isn't challenging for a WWE championship on Monday Night Raw is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Triple H is probably fucking seething with anger when he hears the name and sees Ricochet and what he's looking like on Monday Night Raw. So Vince McMahon is continuing to build new stars no matter what. As they continue to evolve, they come up to Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. So there's this influence of new stars coming into both Raw and SmackDown. And in addition to that, we promote talent in a more effective way. How are you actually promoting talent in a more effective way? I love for Vince McMahon to tell me that one. What are you doing? Digital and social media? You know, not all digital and social media is good for a certain talent. WWE needs to do more than just digital and social media. That's WWE saying, well, we'll keep them to the digital and social media aspect, but we won't give them anything on TV. We need hype packages, we need video packages, we need coming attractions, we need backstories, we need a reason to fucking care. We need this guy and that woman and this woman on TV in the ring winning fucking matches. You need to take these people as a priority. And you need to show me why I should care. You take everybody that I just mentioned and you seal their fate before they even have an opportunity to prove you wrong. You give these guys a death sentence. You give these women a death sentence before they even have an opportunity to open an eyeball. So how are you giving anybody that I just mentioned a chance? And if they do get over, and if they do well, then you got the old man saying, well, he ain't what I'm looking for. She ain't what I'm looking for. He don't have the right body type. She looks like a dyke. She's not blonde enough. She don't have long legs. She don't have plastic all running up and down her body. I'm not hearing any of these excuses. All I'm hearing is that, yep, they evolve. Yep, Triple H creates them. Yep, we bring them to main roster. Yep, what do you do with them? What the fuck do you do with them? And then in turn, when you do what you say here, then I look at Triple H as a fucking failure. I look at Triple H as a failure. Triple H is doing everything he can to build the future for this fucking company. You take everything he's done. And when you do what you do with everybody that I just mentioned, he looks like the failure. You don't look like the fucking failure. Where are you getting them from? You're getting them from him. Where were they built up? Triple H built them up. If they don't succeed on the main roster, who's going to be blamed? It ain't going to be Vince. It's going to be Triple H. What are you doing down there? Meanwhile, it's all Vince McMahon, because there's a reason why we all love TakeOver. There's a reason why we all used to love NXT the way we used to love it. There's a reason why we all praised the operation and how they build and how they create and how they mold and how they care about everybody down there. Everybody on the show felt important. There's a reason. Vince is not going to blame himself. Every single time I see something like this, that is exactly what I think. Vince McMahon is full of fucking shit. Shit. Vince McMahon finally breaks his silence on Paul Heyman. Everything that I just mentioned, everybody that I just mentioned, Paul Heyman wanted to push on WWE television. Now, Vince, in regards to Paul Heyman, he says this, and I quote, "As far as Paul Heyman is concerned, he did a very good job in terms of creativity." Well, all right, apparently this isn't one of Vince McMahon's biggest fucking priorities on Monday night, creativity, because what I'm seeing on Monday Night Raw is anything but fucking creative. So that's all he had to say there. He goes on to say this. He was a big fan of pushing new stars, was Paul Heyman, by the way. He was a big fan of pushing everybody that I just mentioned, and he tried to create new reasons to watch the fucking show every Monday. Vince was asked if Heyman being let go would mean a change in strategy. This is what Vince said. "As far as I am concerned," and continuing on, "acting on what's new and building new characters, you always have to build new characters constantly." So let me get this straight. You're giving me a bullshit excuse as far as Paul Heyman. You're giving me the same answer that Paul Heyman wanted, or Paul Heyman's mentality was the same as the answer you're giving me here, yet Paul Heyman here is without a job. So you're stressing to these people that you need to create new stars, and new stars need to evolve constantly on WWE television. Acting on what's new and building new stars and new characters. You always have to build new characters constantly. Wasn't that the mentality of Paul Heyman? So why is he here without a job? And why is Bruce Pritchard running both shows as executive director? I don't really understand it. Is Paul Heyman being blamed for the ratings? Because from my point of view, you can't really blame Paul Heyman for the ratings if Paul Heyman was doing exactly what you're saying here. So Paul Heyman was doing and creating and evolving new stars. And the ratings were down. And now you've taken over and are doing, or at least trying or saying here, you ain't doing. Clearly, if anybody's watching the fucking show, you know Vince McMahon's not doing what Paul Heyman was doing or wanted to do. So Paul Heyman did, ratings go down. Vince is saying he needs to do what Paul Heyman is doing, and the ratings are going even further down. But the thing is, Vince is not doing what Paul Heyman is doing. Why are the ratings worse now than when Paul Heyman was in charge as executive director? We all know Paul Heyman's a puppet. We all know Paul Heyman was there to be the guy to take the blame. But if Paul Heyman was there and the ratings were decreasing, but now he's gone and Vince McMahon's in charge with Bruce and the ratings are worse now than they've ever been in the history of the fucking company, is Paul Heyman really to blame? The answer is no. Paul Heyman is not to blame. Paul Heyman had a mentality of creating new stars. Whether or not he's a liar, whether or not he is what AJ Styles and Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson say he is, whether he's a bullshit artist. He's from fucking Yonkers. Of course he's a fucking bullshit artist. So, I don't want to hear about Paul Heyman and how he's not a saint. You should have already known that. What was the reason Paul Heyman got fired? It's one of two reasons. Number one, he was doing something that Vince McMahon didn't agree with. Vince McMahon's ego pretty much took over everything on that show. Paul Heyman wanted to go one way. Vince's ego wanted to go to another way. Vince was scared that Paul Heyman was going to be more successful at running Monday Night Raw currently than Vince McMahon. So he had to put an end to it, and he fired Paul Heyman. That is a logical reason as to why Paul Heyman was canned. Maybe Vince felt like he needed to make a decision. The ratings were going down, and obviously, Paul Heyman was put there just in case something like this happened. The ratings were going down. Vince needed somebody to fire in that instance. Vince miraculously, just out of nowhere, out of fucking thin air, created this new position on Monday Night. Why did he create a new position and put someone like Paul Heyman in that new position? Because there's no other position out there for Vince McMahon to look at and fire somebody for. He created a position and put somebody that he knew he could fire, that he's fired before in the past, in that position. I don't understand how anybody listens to this shit and reads this shit. Doesn't grasp the fact that Vince McMahon is the one ultimately to blame here. Now, the other reason why Paul Heyman could have been fired, and this very well could be the reason. I don't know which reason is the reason, but it very well could be the reason. AJ Styles came out on his Twitch stream and said that Paul Heyman is a liar and he's not liked by a lot of guys in that locker room. Who is he not liked by? Is he not liked by the veterans in that locker room? Maybe. I don't know. From what I was under the impression for, Paul Heyman was always looked at as somebody that Vince McMahon appreciated his vision for. Every time Brock Lesnar had a big match, every time Brock Lesnar had a big storyline, every time Brock Lesnar's match needed to be produced, it was always Paul Heyman. It was always Paul Heyman's vision. I read stories and I read articles that Vince McMahon has given Paul Heyman leeway with certain superstars. Paul Heyman has even worked with Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman has even worked with Ronda Rousey. I don't understand why Paul Heyman was fired for his creativity and his push for more youth on Monday Night Raw. So why isn't he liked by the elite in that locker room? I don't really necessarily believe that as well. Do I think Paul Heyman has enemies in that locker room that don't like him, that show face, that show him respect in person, but talk shit about him behind closed doors? Absolutely. But then you got guys like Apollo Crews. And you got guys like Buddy Murphy. And you got guys like the Street Profits that come out and have personally stated publicly that they owe Paul Heyman everything. That it was great working with Paul Heyman, and that they were upset when they found out the news that Paul Heyman would not be there. So which is it? Which is it? Did Vince McMahon buckle under the pressure of the veterans in the locker room to get rid of Paul Heyman just simply because they didn't like him? So how many of those people actually called for Heyman to be fired? And I can refute their feeling and say, are you for the greater good of Monday Night Raw? If you want Paul Heyman, who wants nothing but youth and he wants consistency on the show and he's building for the future, how many of you guys are actually for the greater good of Monday Night Raw? And how many of you guys are about your fucking self? How many of those guys were looking at Paul Heyman pushing the youth and not pushing the old guys? How many of those veterans realized that Heyman wasn't on their side anymore and he knew that the veterans were going to be pushed to the side and be placed in a position to put the younger guys over? How many of those guys actually found an issue with that? Because pro wrestling is nothing but jealousy and envy, right? Pro wrestling is one of the most cutthroat businesses you could possibly ever find profession in. So you mean to tell me that's not a viable reason? So why was Paul Heyman fired? It could be any one of those situations. Now, but Vince McMahon says Paul Heyman was doing a very good job in terms of creativity. As far as I'm concerned, that's the only fucking thing that mattered here. I don't give a shit who likes him, who dislikes him, who wants to see him drop dead. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks of Paul Heyman. The fact that Vince McMahon said he did a very good job in terms of creativity is the only thing that should matter. Yet he's fired. And now we got Vince and Bruce running the show, and the show is worse off than it ever has been in its entire 28-year history. So was it Paul Heyman's fault? Or is it Vince McMahon's fault? Obviously, I think you guys know the answer. Normally, when we all go out, we all reach for the big three. The phone, the keys, and your wallet. Why are we carrying around an iPhone 11 Pro Max, but your wallet looks like complete shit? Don't bullshit me, man. I know your wallet ain't up to standard. You got this pretty iPhone with this expensive $100 case, and you're carrying around a $20 wallet that's ripping at every seam possible. Give me a break. I am here to change your outlook on wallets, and that's why I present to you the Ridge. Today's podcast is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. It's light, it's sleek, it's industrial, it doesn't bend, it doesn't bulge awkwardly in your back pocket, and it seriously changed my entire outlook on my wallet situation. Most people are still using wallets designed in the 90s. I don't understand that. Carrying around old receipts, gift cards, crumpled up pictures, hotel room keys. It's an absolute mess, just like Monday Night Raw Creative. Why have we moved on from large flip phones to smartphones, but still carry around the same old decrepit wallet? I don't understand it. Now, I got a Ridge. It holds up to 12 cards, and you got room for cash. You guys can get the cash strap, but I got the money clip. It feels great. There's over 30 colors, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. I got myself the forged carbon. I absolutely love it. I think this is the best one that they have. I really love it, but don't take my word for it. They got 30,000 five-star reviews, so they have a lot to be confident about. The durable materials means each wallet comes with a lifetime warranty. You could buy one wallet and own it for the rest of your life. The Ridge team is so confident that you will like it, that they will let you test drive it for free. 30 days plus, actually 45 days. You guys get to carry around the wallet. If you don't like it, they will give you a full refund. So guys, listen, if none of this sold you on getting a new wallet, I don't know what will. It's got RFID blocking qualities. You know your cards and your ID are safe from hackers. All your information and your credit card information is safe and secure in the Ridge wallet. What more do I have to tell you? Ridge.com/script. Use code SCRIPT at checkout. Get 10% off and free worldwide shipping. Once again, that's ridge.com/script. Use code SCRIPT at checkout, and I want to thank them for supporting Off the Script. All right, man, continuing on with the second half of the podcast. This next story is a long one. And I don't really have anything else to add on top of what I've already stated to you here, ranting for an hour on WWE Creative. I genuinely don't know what else I could really say. You guys know my frustration. I get your frustration. I know everybody's frustration. But it's very interesting to see that now investment experts claim that WWE is a stock and a company that you should stay absolutely as far away from as possible. And they also slam the creative team. Investment experts are slamming WWE Creative. When has that ever been in the news? Is this finally a situation where they're waking up to Vince McMahon's lies and Vince McMahon's bullshit? That everything he stated in this call that I just went over was complete bullshit. They are now finally waking up, which to me makes every conference call from this point forward even more interesting, especially if Vince McMahon fed these people bullshit only to see the ratings continue to drop further and further, and that they will because of all the other major sports happening around WWE. For most people, discussing WWE's creative team can be a fun way to pass the time. I know about that firsthand. I've done it for 6 years. It's great. Whether you support the decisions being made or whether you think Vince McMahon is absolutely the devil himself. However, experts on how creative decisions can affect wrestling promotions financially have now had their say on WWE's creative process, and it's not good news for all future investors. Brandon Ross, Richard Greenfield, and Mark Kelly of technology, media, and telecommunications research firm Lightshed Partners have released a detailed report on the current status of WWE and have pretty much recommended that no one should invest in the WWE stock at this present time. Let's read on. I'm very curious. This is the first time I'm reading this with you guys, so let's go on this journey on shitting on WWE Creative together. The report acknowledges the issues that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought about for companies such as WWE, but also makes it clear that the pandemic is far from the only reason it would be unwise to invest in Vince McMahon's company. At the end of the day, the company eats on its Raw and SmackDown television contracts. The domestic renewals for Raw and SmackDown were a financial game changer for WWE. And the reason the stock crumbled is because international deals did not follow the same trajectory and came in net down from the last round, despite the gaudy social media figures. This is not changing anytime soon. We do not see a clear path to better economics than the television ecosystem is providing for WWE content or for any sports or sports-like content. Perhaps the tech giants will one day get more deeply involved in the arms race for live sports, live entertainment, and precipitate a model change. But more than likely, if they do get involved at all, it would also be to compete for the same exact or similar programming that WWE is providing today. All of this tells you one thing. The margin for error for WWE content is going to be lower than ever before, especially the content on these two shows. The content has not resonated. Ratings have been disappointing essentially since the current deals were inked. Declines in television viewership have been part of the problem, but the sports live have held up better than the rest of the ecosystem. And one of the reasons the current partners were willing to pay is that WWE itself was holding up much better than the rest of TV. And what they mean by that, I think, is the fact that WWE, and the reason why their current partners were willing to pay for WWE programming is because they are one of a kind. WWE is 52 weeks a year. There is no off-season in WWE. It is constant new programming every single week on Fox and on USA. That is what made them so attractive. When Fox could not reach a deal with UFC, they went right to the WWE. They wanted that consistent programming, brand new, fresh program. Same thing with USA. That's why WWE and USA have been partners for so long. It is the only thing on television today, sports-wise, that doesn't have an off-season. So, obviously, they looked at that when things were right, when things were normal in the world climate, and thought to themselves, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. Nobody realized that there was going to be a COVID-19 pandemic that literally put a stop to everything. So they were more willing to pay for the WWE product because of that 52-a-week consistency. So that is why that is. COVID-19 has clearly compounded the problem. We absolutely do not want to minimize the impact from COVID. WWE is reaction entertainment, and no live audience hurts. Now, I just got done ranting about how the live audience does hurt, but I don't think if there was a live audience that the shows would be any different. There's no way for you to tell me or convince me that there would be a difference in the shows. This is the same level of programming that we've gotten when there were live audiences. So why would you think, now that we have no audience, that the live audience is now going to factor into the way WWE programs their shows and creatively books their shows? You have no grounds to even use that as an excuse. That just goes to show me, if you do use that as an excuse, that you weren't watching the product at all to begin with. Or you just want to defend them and shield them from all the negative criticism coming their way, deservedly so. A look at the ratings across AEW, NXT, Raw, and SmackDown shows. All were impacted negatively by the virus. That being said, AEW and NXT ratings have actually been climbing back. In July, AEW was up 11% versus April on average. NXT has notably improved against both March and April in the past 2 months. Meanwhile, both Raw and SmackDown have taken another leg down in the past month, with Raw down 10% and SmackDown down 8% compared to the prior month, and both shows down 15% compared to April. Understanding seasonality in the WWE calendar, we looked at the ratings in terms of year-over-year declines. In July, Raw ratings have been down 37% and SmackDown down 6%, even with SmackDown's move to Fox. Of note, Raw viewership has made fresh all-time lows multiple times this summer. In this year alone, in this summer alone, never mind the fucking year, in the last 2 months, WWE, if you look at the top 5 worst ratings for Monday Night Raw in the history of Monday Night Raw, you will see that every single one of them came in 2020 in the last 2 months. If that's not embarrassing for Vince McMahon, I don't know what will. If that doesn't wake up Vince McMahon, I don't know what will. Ratings are likely set to decline further as sports return. Like I mentioned, especially with the NBA coming back on Thursday night, WWE has a sustained period with less live competition, and that is coming to an end. COVID or no COVID, creative appears to be the center of all of their issues. Vince McMahon has acknowledged things need to change multiple times. However, while there have been short-lived experiments, the content appears to continuously return to a similar formula under his absolute control. McMahon went so far as to hire creative heads for Raw and SmackDown a year ago, with Paul Heyman heading Raw, Eric Bischoff heading SmackDown. Neither are in their roles a year later. Bischoff was fired after 4 months on the job. He didn't even get in there. He didn't even pick up a fucking pen to work on a SmackDown show on his watch. Heyman was relieved last month. The role is now consolidated under Bruce Pritchard. One of the largest problems we have identified is an inability to create new superstars. Every era of WWE wrestling has been defined by some key top figures. Recent years have been of the star power, with Roman Reigns the closest, but never really was on that same level of top echelon guy in WWE. More broadly, there really has been very little younger talent that have broken through at all on their way to replenishing even the middle level of stars in the men's division. Now he's really getting into the meat and potatoes of this shit. Overwrote this article. Kudos to you. This has made the company more susceptible to injuries, absentees of major stars. Much of the talent with drawing power is aging, and the big draws for major events have been in bringing back even older wrestlers such as Goldberg and The Undertaker. That is a band-aid, not a long-term strategy. It seemed that McMahon had identified this problem and may be committed to solving it through Raw. On the last quarter's earnings call, he spoke about Raw. This was the last quarter's earnings call, not this current one. This is the last quarter's conference call. Raw has suffered McMahon states, but not necessarily because of the environment. It suffered because we bring in a lot of new talent into Raw, and it takes a while for those new stars to get over. We no longer have Brock Lesnar, obviously, so he's going right back on that and putting his hat on Brock Lesnar, who is an old guy, a big name, a part-time guy. He's not new or fresh in any sense of the word. But we have a new champion, who he's failed to mention by name here, Drew McIntyre, and a lot of new performers coming into Raw. It takes a while. So that's the reason and how you use those performers in this story or that story, what happens. So with new talent, it's just going to take a while. I'm convinced, though, that Raw's ratings are going to bounce back considerably. End quote. Oh, they bounce back all right. They bounce right back into the fucking trash can, at the bottom of the trash can where they belong. And it takes a while to get new talent over. My God, that was a short-lived fucking experiment. You went from one quarter to the next. It takes a long time for this talent to get over. How long was it? 3 months? And we see everybody that Paul Heyman wanted to push now off of television, with you bringing back Edge and Christian and Ric Flair and the fucking Big Show, MVP. Look at McMahon's statement last quarter and look at his tone this quarter. We need to create new stars. But according to Vince McMahon, the last quarter, they had new stars on the show, but they failed to push them. And now he's singing the same excuse again. We need to create new stars. Our 30-year track record proves that we will be fine. Whoever wrote this article obviously is doing God's work. I've been saying this for fucking years. I don't know why you guys are shocked by this article. I'm just happy. I am like a pig in shit right now, just loving the fact that somebody who is in the ears of the shareholders writing an article like this for consumption understands where the problem lies. We believe that strategy with Heyman was to work towards building this talent, even if it took time. That seemed like an important change. However, 7 weeks later, Heyman was gone. 7 weeks from that last statement I just read, Heyman was gone. Since that time, Raw's focus has again shifted to more heavily established stars. It has not worked. As we mentioned, viewership declines are accelerating again. WWE has a few years before entering back into Raw and SmackDown negotiations, aka TV deals. This is the time to fix the roster, especially with a developmental pipeline in NXT. That brand is meant to be more than just a competitor to AEW. A longer-term approach, even if ratings return more slowly, is probably the right prescription. Perhaps NXT Creative head Paul Levesque could help in righting the ship. The TV points out, or the report points out, that while WWE is still about managing to beat its competition in weekly TV ratings, the ratings in their current state won't be enough to attract big money TV deals in the future, such as the $1 billion SmackDown contract WWE has signed with Fox last year. WWE will hold one of its annual earning calls this week, so it will be interesting to see how 2020 has treated the company so far. And clearly, as you guys have come to understand, WWE has made more money than they've ever made in the history of World Wrestling Entertainment. But them making money doesn't make them a successful company. The ratings matter. Viewership matters. Creative matters. If all of these things were right, Vince McMahon would probably be looking at even more money in every which way. More people would be watching the shows. That would equal more advertising revenue for them and potential even raise the price of the product when negotiations come back for Fox and USA Network. They're not building themselves up for the future on Fox and USA Network. From what I could tell here, this is the only time that Fox and WWE are going to be doing business. Fox is not going to want SmackDown after this. They probably don't even want SmackDown now. Vince doesn't realize that if the ratings and creative were in sync, that he would be making the company more money. People would be buying merchandise for said superstars on TV. It works round and round. Everything comes full circle. And whoever wrote this article has pinpointed the issue. I don't need to say anything else. I've been preaching this week in and week out while people in the community turn the other cheek to fucking get praise from WWE. Oh, I get to interview Natalya. Oh, I get to interview Matt Riddle. Oh, I get to interview Sasha Banks. Your credibility is at an all-time low if you seek that route. You ain't working for the fucking company to have the company be better. You ain't for the greater good of the fucking company. You're for the greater good of yourself. Meanwhile, I'm here fighting the fight by myself. All I want is a good product. All I want is creative that I could actually say, you know what, they did a good job. When have we really felt that about the main roster? Whoever wrote this article, kudos to them. They have done what nobody else has done during this time where WWE loves to have these quarterly conference calls and bullshit everybody, lie to everybody, and use excuse after excuse after excuse. He just did God's work. He just summed up in one article what I've been preaching every single fucking week. Now it's up to people to really listen and come the next conference call, zing Vince McMahon on excuses that he used in the last year or two. Vince, I'm sorry, you used that excuse already. I need a more in-depth answer of what you're going to do. Why is the show the way it is right now, but yet you gave me 6 different fucking excuses the last year or so? And here we are in the same goddamn boat. Dave Meltzer even chimed in on this. He says, there are some in WWE that are afraid to tell Vince McMahon he is the problem. No shit. No shit. In the middle of a pandemic, people are going to speak up about what's wrong with the company, tell Vince McMahon he's doing wrong and he's the reason for the fucking problems? Do you want a job? When 300 million fucking Americans are out of work now with no unemployment? Dave Meltzer stated this during Wrestling Observer Live, and I quote, "It's a different Vince than before. It's like everything. The 80s Vince isn't this Vince. That's just the reality of it. He's the problem. I hate to say it, but everyone knows it. It's like it's not a secret anymore, but it's impossible. And it's again, the thing is, it's like people will blame. It still astounds me that anyone will go in there and make excuses, or when Vince makes a decision, they'll try to blame somebody else for that decision, knowing it's Vince McMahon who's the problem. It's like, I guess people are afraid to say, people in that company are afraid to say Vince is the problem. I can see why. Still, you gotta know, right? You gotta know. Dave Meltzer's probably got some legendary fucking stories about Vince McMahon and quotes from people who will remain anonymous for eternity about what they've stated about Vince McMahon. Again, Dave Meltzer is not really releasing new information to anybody. I think everybody's under the impression, fan and employee alike, they all know Vince is the problem. Vince is the absolute problem. Vince McMahon also talked about the Saudi Arabia show in 2020. He stated that he does not know what the climate is going to look like in Saudi Arabia. There is something that Vince McMahon was asked about this particular situation during the annual shareholders meeting that took place this month. According to the WWE chairman and CEO, it's still a possibility, but he says this, and I quote, "Oh, that's a possibility. Obviously, Saudi has been going through what we in America have been going through as far as COVID's concerned. Right now, I think they're doing a little bit better than we are. Everybody's doing better than we are in the United States because we got a fucking election coming up. Considerably better. So there's a possibility that we'll get a show in before the end of the year as was scheduled, but we are not certain. because you know who can be certain about what COVID-19 is going to do. WWE's not going to Saudi Arabia in 2020. After the summer is over, folks, forget about it. The hammer's coming down, and COVID is going to be ramped up as we get into November. We might not even have a fucking election. Trump is looking to cancel the fucking election. Postpone the election. He don't want people voting. Unless people vote in person. Because of the mail-in ballots. You mean to tell me that we're going to get back to normal? Are you fucking serious? This thing is going to be full-blown lockdown come the time WWE's got to do another show in Saudi Arabia. And this is what I mentioned when talking about Evolution 2. We'll go over it again tomorrow on tomorrow's podcast. WWE was supposed to do Evolution 2 at the end of August, following SummerSlam. That now has been moved back to a future date. If that. Nobody knows if Evolution's taking place. WWE has put Payback on the calendar for August 30th. Why? I don't know. That's a terrible fucking idea. So if WWE is doing that, then my logical brain goes into effect and thinks, well, if they're doing that with Payback on August 30th and they're not doing a Saudi show and they're not going to take a chance to do a Saudi show, they got to put something else on the calendar for that date because they clearly won't be flying over there. Let's do Evolution on that date from the Performance Center or from Full Sail University or wherever. WWE is going to be filming this thing. So that's that. They're not going to be going to Saudi Arabia. And I don't think anybody on the roster right now that is booked for that show is going to want to go over there anyway. Nobody's going to want to be on a plane for 18 hours. Nobody's going to want to go to a different country away from their fucking family. You don't know what the fuck they're going through. Nobody's flying anywhere. And I think the government over there and Vince McMahon very well know that. WWE also wants to bring fans back to arenas. He was mentioning this to the shareholders. Sure, we obviously have to follow what's going on, and sometimes you think you have the answer, and then, COVID-19 makes it more severe than you could have imagined. We're working with arenas. We have any number of tentative dates. Those tentative dates keep moving back sometimes, but again, with our form of entertainment, it's imperative that we have fans to interact with, and we continue to look forward to that, pinpointing exactly when we're going to return. It's a whole different atmosphere than has been in the past, and we will capitalize on it. The company does have a few live dates scheduled for the end of the summer into the fall, but nobody knows what is going to happen. And WWE, honestly, I don't think there'll be live fans in 2020. They won't. AJ Styles even came out on his Twitch and said, I don't think we're going to have live fans until 2021. So I think Vince McMahon can wish all he wants. If every other major sport is operating without fans, then WWE is not going to be above everybody else as far as priority. If MLB, NHL, NBA, and the NFL have no fans, MLB's using fucking cardboard cutouts, and in worst cases, they're using CGI from MLB The Show. CGI video game fans in attendance. WWE is going to have no fans until we get some sort of vaccine. And even then, who knows who's going to want to come out to the shows. Finally, guys, Vince McMahon talks about WWE building an actual Hall of Fame. Now, I don't know why they don't have an actual Hall of Fame. If they did, I'd actually make the trip to go and visit it. That sounds like a good idea. It's been a lot of criticism as far as WWE goes, and the fact that they don't have a physical building for the Hall of Fame. Fans have often wondered what it would be like to actually go and visit the WWE Hall of Fame and what kind of setup it would have. During the company shareholders meeting, Vince McMahon commented on the possibility of a building with an actual Hall of Fame dedicated to it. He said the company isn't a fan of bricks and mortar unless it's an office building. He's aware of what that means to me is Vince McMahon doesn't give a shit about his history. He really doesn't. He doesn't. He wants to build himself a fucking state-of-the-art new fucking complex in Stamford, Connecticut, but you can't relive the fucking past in WWE, right? You can't honor the past. Give me a fucking break, man. Unless it's an office building. He is aware of the interest and stated that it might be a possibility somewhere down the line. Bullshit. Bullshit. So if everybody that wants to know the answer to this question, no, you ain't getting a Hall of Fame. Bricks and mortar is something that, generally speaking, we, other than office buildings and office space, of course, we're not necessarily fond of, but nonetheless, again, an interest in that continues to build, and it's still a possibility somewhere down the line. Now, the WWE Hall of Fame might have been a nice addition to the WWE New York restaurant building that closed down in 2002, and they got a lot going on right now with the coronavirus pandemic, and they need to get through this first, which will require a return to the arenas and a touring schedule. So a Hall of Fame right now is not in WWE's cards. They're looking at live fans. They're looking at getting back on the road. They're looking at getting WrestleMania a venue. They're looking at building next year and hoping that the same thing doesn't happen next year that happened this year. A Hall of Fame, folks, I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but as long as Vince McMahon is there, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I honestly think that's something that Triple H would absolutely go and green light, and it's not going to happen under Vince McMahon's watch. I'd love it, but I just don't see it happening. Guys, I'm getting out of here. If you enjoyed the podcast, let me know what you think down below in the comment section. What an informative show, man. If you agree with me, let me know. If you liked a certain part, I'm going to try and do this every single week, man. If you liked a certain part of the show, clip it from your iPhone or your Android device. Send it to me on Twitter. I'll retweet you guys. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything concerning WWE and the failure that right now is WWE Creative. If you guys are listening to me on Spotify and iTunes, thank you so very much. If you're on iTunes, I love if you guys leave me a 5-star rating. I'll shout you guys out again tomorrow on part 2 for the podcast. Leave a 5-star rating and leave me a comment on why you love Off the Script. Patreon.com/JD from NY206. Check out all the other videos, including the extras that I did this week and the live streams that I did on Dynamite and on Raw down below in the description. Make sure you guys go check out the SmackDown review from last night, my talk on Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss. Big E getting a singles run. We'll talk about that, a rant about that tomorrow. That's a big story. And what I got lined up for you guys tomorrow is Seth Rollins again in the public eye, shitting on the fans who did not like eye for an eye at Extreme Rules. I'm sorry, Mr. Messiah. It was trash. And we'll go over why tomorrow on Off the Script, guys. Hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell for notifications, and hit that thumbs up. And I'll see you guys right back here for part 2 of OTS on Sunday. See you guys later.